The movie immediately starts with a scene of Denji wanting to open a door, and I love how stylized the movie already is. Already, you can just feel how experimental the movie is compared to season 1. Everything is black and white. It's drawn with a much more deliberate, sketchy art style to signify that this is not taking place in reality. The screen has a smaller aspect ratio, the character animation is on point, the scene is incredibly inspiring just from the first few seconds of the movie, and it makes the dream sequence at the end of the last episode from season 1 look extremely bland. So far, off to a great start. After that, we get the opening for the movie Iris Out by Kenshi Yonezu. Damn, I remember 8 years ago when he made that iconic opening for My Hero, and 8 years later, this man is still making peak. And I have to say that this opening is fire. Now, this opening did release on YouTube before the movie aired, so a lot of people probably have already seen this opening before, since these guys keep uploading too many damn clips from the movie. But as for the opening, it's a visual treat, and the Easter eggs that are hidden in this opening is very eye-catching, no pun intended, considering most of the opening has something within each scene that hints that Makima is watching. As Denji is dragging power out of the apartment, you see this camera angle that looks almost like a drone shot, making it seem like they're being watched, and then the scene transitions with the crows flying across the screen, giving a dead giveaway that it's Makima. Right as the scene transitions, you see Makima walk inside a public safety building, and you see the floor patterns on the ground with a bunch of circles entrapped in one another, a bunch of spirals, right? Marking a resemblance to Makima's eye. You see a crow here, you see a rat here, then you see Power's uvula having horns, which really shows how they're honing in on the anime aesthetic for the adaptation instead of keeping everything too static and boring. You see Pochita dancing to DDR. Oh wait, look, you see the spirals again. Then you see a cat, another hint that Makima's watching. I mean, I can go on with how many different Easter eggs there are that displays Makima's presence, but I'm not gonna do that. The song for this opening is amazing. I actually prefer it over Kickback. I like Kickback, but I've always thought a portion of that song was whatever. It wasn't, I wasn't really messing with the flow. Felt awkward, but the flow for Iris Out is sonically more pleasing to my ears and has a much more organic flow to it. Also, not to mention, there's a lot of Makima Easter eggs for this opening, but there's also a lot of Easter eggs for future arcs for part 1 of Chainsaw Man. And that shit is making me kind of hyped because I'm waiting to see these arcs get adapted. I really enjoyed how some of the public safety members were displayed along with the music. It really gives you this vibe that this organization is not a joke. They are not playing games, and it adds to the tone for Chainsaw Man's dark, brooding world, while at the same time implementing dynamic colors. Bro, I remember when people would criticize how boring the adaptation was for season 1, due to how dark and dull everything was, and people would say stuff like, Chainsaw Man is a dark show, it's meant to look dark. And I'm over here like, you do realize you can still make the world seem dark and depressing while being colorful? And this movie perfectly capitalizes on that. I really enjoy the scene of Denji, Power, Aki, and a bunch of other public safety members dancing. You see Makima holding a paper doll chain, pretty much symbolizing how she's the one pulling the pieces, she's the one who's in control. And yeah, I mean, we don't know if those hands are Makima's, but bro, who else would it fucking be? I love how the scene then transitions into Denji riding a horse with that old school 19th century cinematic filter, a clear nod to the first motion picture, and this shit hits so hard because Fujimoto's a film buff, and to see all of his adaptations get treated with a deliberate emphasis on cinema is just chef's kiss, and it really feels like a love letter to Fujimoto. Hey look, say what you want to say about how some aspects of his work were handled poorly in season 1, or shit, any adaptation you feel like has problems. One thing I will say is that they are continuously keeping that tradition of letting y'all know that Fujimoto's work is highly inspired by movies. I also thought it was pretty cool to see Denji's transformation process for the first time in the entire series, including the manga. Because this man Fujimoto, he never shows the process, he always cuts that shit, but in this opening, we actually see what happens to his face in order to create this chainsaw head of his. And yeah, that's all I really got to say about, the opening. I mean, I could have said a little more, but I pretty much just said the gist of everything I needed to say, so let's move on to the actual scenes in the film.
Being faithful to the source material is often overlooked, because for the vast majority of viewers watching the movie, they're anime fans that have been anticipating this since season 1, but for Chainsaw Man, the manga community is pretty big, so most concerns from season 1 were heard, and this is where the complete change in style is shown. And one way this is shown is through the colour expression that cannot be underestimated. The level of detail in making the colours of the backgrounds pop is just chef's kiss. A fine example of this is at the quarter half of the movie where we see Aki and Angel slay a human, and the blood red background with the blue accent acting as a highlighter to show the blood of the victim is what a true passion project looks like, because they didn't need to add this. This wasn't necessary, but it just shows how much they truly cared about this movie and making it special. Another scene that perfectly encapsulates this is when Denji's feelings grow stronger and stronger for Reze as she glows in front of him in the cafe scene when they go on their first date. The touches that directors and artists use not to interfere with the story or change its meaning are honestly what we as fans look for that have already read the manga, and feel happiness in knowing that the anime fans can feel the same level of that thrill that we did while reading these chapters for the first time. But there's a downside to this that needs to also be talked about, with Chainsaw Man turning a new leaf in its direction. The original motivation behind season 1's making is unfortunately lost. In order to make this movie, it took the drastic measure of sacrificing the realism. Coming into Chainsaw Man season 1, a major change from the manga was the realistic standpoint it took on the world. Late 90s Japan is depicted as a dull grey country, lacking any colour in its characters. This was especially prominent with characters such as Aki, Himeno and Makima. The bright colours that made them unique were toned down for darker tones that contrasted with the setting they were shown in. When looking at Aki from the movie compared to his season 1 counterpart, his eyes and his hair pop out, the same with Makima's bright red hair, instantly grasping your attention. But the movie's artistic approach didn't stop there. It was also clear when looking at the characters in the movies themselves. When taking a look at the models themselves, we can see a lot of detail was taken out, further having that sketchbook look that the models have. This is especially prevalent in the school scene, where the sketchbook artistic approach really takes its effects on Reze's funny face expressions, and with this it actually pays homage to its source material, just like Fujimoto's other movies, which was adapted earlier this year. Look back. Now, the things that made season 1's realism truly come out was the small details, such as the hand movement. Scenes such as Makima making Denji's tie, Aki knotting his hair, or him cutting an apple, or the morning scene where he makes his breakfast have an insane amount of realism. It just goes to show there was a level of thought put behind every single character, even going down to their hand movements. To go even further, when we look at the fight scenes of season 1, the choreography of providing us the movements of the devils vs human were captured to parallel the differences against a normal human and something that's supernatural. When you start to look at characters like Aki and Himeno, their slowness is heavily empathized in combat. They become exhausted over time from running or fighting, and there's a clear distinction in the sloppiness of certain actions compared to devils, while when the devils engage in combat, their sporadic movements are showcased with lightning-like speed. Aki fights Katana Man and we see him try to get back up, losing all of his energy and putting it into this final sequence of blows. Not only is he fighting Katana Man, he's fighting his body because it's trying to keep up with the intensity of fighting a hybrid, whereas Katana Man, with him being a devil, once he gets going, all it takes is one swift blow. In contrast to the Bomb Girl arc, it heavily shifts away from this and instead uses an artistic approach of fast, swift combat, frame by frame, not to mention the creativity behind using impact frames to show just how devastating Reze's bombs are, and you can almost feel the impact of what she destroys before her.
You got Denji and Power in Makima's office. Power has these big ass horns and you see Makima caressing her horns with her fingers, and when I saw this, I was like, what the fuck, bro, what the fuck? I don't know if I was the only person thinking of this, but why does Makima always have to move her fingers in a seductive manner? Bro, she didn't even do this in the manga. This is just the anime deciding to do this on their own. And then you just see Makima squatting awkwardly in front of Power, and I'm over here like, bro, what is going on? The comedy is clearly handled in a completely different way compared to season 1, and you can see that with Power hiding under the desk, moving like a PNG model. It's pretty obvious how much they're approaching this with a much more anime-like aesthetic, making it feel like they're not limiting themselves of any creative power. Oh, by the way, I'm a manga reader, so I'm honestly just gonna skim through most of these scenes and just get to the most important moments, alright? Anyway, we get the movie theater scene between Denji and Makima, and it was handled very well. The animation for this movie is so damn good. The goddamn animation from the movie that they're watching is better than most of the animation you be seeing for other anime. How the hell is an animated product within an animated product better animated than One Punch Man Season 3? Jokes aside though, I have no problems with how the scene was handled. The way Makima's character was handled was great. You can clearly see this bitch is a weirdo from her mannerisms, the way she speaks, her consistent facial expression that she contains. There's something clearly off about her to where it makes you wonder, yo, is she on the spectrum or am I tweaking? Now, I know I said I was content with how they adapted the movie theater scene, but there's actually two problems I have with the adaptation. So, when Denji and Makima are watching their final movie, in the manga, we don't see the build up to the two characters hugging. Basically, you have absolutely zero idea on what the scene looks like before they hug each other. But the one thing you can assume is that this scene is meant to be sentimental. See, in the movie, they decided to extend the scene by having the guy walk up to the woman is sweeping the ground with her broomstick, and they just stare at each other with no emotion in their face, and they just randomly hug each other. Look, in the manga, they were staring at each other with zero expression on their face as well, but the difference is, the movie made it look so random, it felt so weird. In the manga, because there isn't any context or any lead up to the scene of them hugging, you can kind of use your imagination and think to yourself, okay, these two were probably having a heartfelt, serious conversation right before they hugged or something. Maybe the man was about to leave, in order to go to war, and they decided to have a goodbye hug. In the movie, it's like, oh, guy walks up to a lady, the woman just drops her broomstick, and they immediately hug each other with no emotion. It honestly felt robotic, and I didn't like how they adapted this. Another problem I have with the movie theater scene is the way they adapted that iconic and one of the most important panels of part 1, Makima crying. In the manga, the panel was absolutely chilling and confusing. It honestly gave me goosebumps the first time I saw that panel, and I think a huge reason why I felt like that is because when you look at the panel, the entire background is darkened. The only thing you see is Makima, and the panel is giving a clear emphasis to her. Whereas in the movie, you can still see the background. You can still see the seats that are next to her, and it honestly looked extremely basic, and it didn't give off the same tone as it did in the manga. Moving forward, we see Denji walking outside the streets, thinking about Makima, and it starts raining, and he then goes inside a phone booth. There's an anime original scene in the movie where there's a coffee can with a bunch of cigarette butts stuffed inside, and you see Denji grab the can. He shakes it to hear if there's anything inside, and it seems like he was about to drink it, which is disgusting. And I don't really know how to feel about this. I mean, it fits with his deprived ass character, but at the same time, it's like he's been shown to assimilate to a normal life in the anime, where you see him eat jam on toast like a madman, right? In the beginning of the show. And then as the show progresses, you see subtle details of him eating the toast like an actual civilized human being. So I don't really get why they decided to add the scene. Not to mention Denji hates coffee, and this is not the first time he's drank it. There's Chainsaw Man extra bonus content in the manga, which was also recently adapted in the new Chainsaw Man Season 1 compilation movie, and it shows that he hates it. And yeah, I know, literally the scene before this, Denji swallowed a small little flower, but swallowing a flower is not the same thing as drinking an old can with cigarette butts on it. But yeah, anyway, we're introduced to Reze. They both talk in the phone booth. Denji decides to regurgitate the flower that he swallowed earlier, and I've already talked about this in our Chainsaw Man Part 1 review video that we made last year, and this shit still makes no sense. How the fuck was he able to gag out a flower that he swallowed minutes ago, and it was somehow still intact? In the anime, it doesn't look any better because he straight up nibbled on the flower, and it somehow looks like it's in perfect condition with just saliva on it. This makes no fucking sense, and I know I'm nitpicking, but this video is me trying to be as real and authentic as I can in terms of how I felt about this movie. I'm not gonna sugarcoat shit. I'm gonna glaze when I can, nitpick when I can, and shit on things when I can. After the phone booth scene, we see Reze walking down the alleyway and the animation looks so weird. I don't know why the Chainsaw Man anime is doing this, but it's starting to feel like it's damn near a tradition for them to animate a weird walking animation. They did it with Aki in season 1 where he's walking so unnaturally, and in this movie they kinda do a similar thing. We then see Denji and Reze at the coffee shop just talking to each other. And the character animation looks so beautiful, it just looks so inspiring. There's never a moment where things just look awkwardly stiff. It's always moving and it's visually pleasing, which is great because you don't even need the action to stay engaged with the animation. When Denji says he's starting to fall for Reze and you see the smooth ass camera movement with the light shining from her, it looks so deliberately smooth that it looks funny and it matches with the tone of the scene. I also want to mention the scene where Aki is talking to Makima, and right when the scene cuts, you see the red sky with the sun in the middle of the screen, covered by a building, and it almost looks like it's supposed to be Makima's eye, and she's hiding as she's watching, and then you see the crows fly by, and I'm over here like, damn, if you know, you know. But man, I love the colors that were used in this scene. It looked amazing. I love the ominous music that was played near the end where Aki is staring with a cold stone face, talking about how he will never be friendly with the angel devil. I really enjoyed that. I'm going to be skimming through some scenes, of course, but there's something I want to talk about, and it's the school scene, and there's a few criticisms I have. So, in the pool scene, Denji and Reze go skinny dipping. Reze takes her clothes off, and boom, she has no nipples. No, I'm being serious. She deadass has no nipples, and I'm over here like, holy shit, Denji has to be the dumbest person ever, because you're telling me this girl smiled at you gagging up a flower while gleefully holding a flower that is drenched in saliva. You're swimming with her and she has no nipples. Clearly this bitch is not normal. She's mentally abnormal and she's physically abnormal. How did you not see the red flags? Jokes aside, yeah, I think censorship is just stupid, and you're probably just gonna say I'm a gooner, which to be honest, I don't even care if you do. In the manga, it was also slightly censored, and I was thinking, okay, maybe it's gonna be different when it's handled in the movie. But no, it's censored, and they didn't even try censoring it in a creative way. They deadass just decided to not care and just, not draw any nipples, which was really jarring, and it kind of took me out of the experience. It's like, this movie is rated R, it's for adults. Bro, I don't get why they censor this shit, but they don't censor heads being decapitated, limbs being chopped off. It's just so weird. Also, the anime decided to slightly switch up the pacing where Denji is talking to Pochita and he's over here fantasizing about a bunch of different girls, right? Meanwhile, Reze is running away from this crazy ass dude, and this was so trash in the movie, but basically in the manga, the way it's paced, you have Denji fantasize about girls, and then you see Reze run away from this man. In the movie, however, it was like, Reze is running away cause the fan service. Reze is running away cause the fan service. And it's like, holy shit, was it infuriating to watch. And I don't know why they would change the pacing like that, but I really did not enjoy that. But everything else was good. I mean, Reze singing in Russian, it was good, but look, I don't speak Russian, but bro, I could tell she was butchering that accent. But hey, let's pretend she didn't, alright? Next thing I want to talk about is the kiss scene. Okay, the movie decided to have a really grandiose build up to the kiss with the fireworks and the little kid at the festival dropping a candy apple with someone stomping on it, right? Then the scene cuts to Denji and Reze and you see a bunch of blood spilling. Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of how the movie decided to adapt the scene. It was so on the nose. In the manga, it was way more subtle. You see Denji and Reze kiss, and you see Denji's silhouette fall over, and you're over here like, wait, what the hell happened? Was the kiss so damn good he fell over? But in the anime, there's like zero room for that split-second interpretation. It's kind of whatever, and it loses that instant surprise factor that the manga had. Oh, by the way, there's a scene where Reze is asking Denji a question before they kiss, and I don't know if it was just my theater or if the English subtitles just made a mistake, but for some reason, when she was asking a question, there was like no question mark at the end. It was just a period. Hey man, I be noticing these tiny ass details when I be watching shit. Imagine they don't fix this shit when it comes out on streaming services. Now, starting from this point on, this movie goes fucking insane with the animation. the action, the direction. Everything is just on point. Every time Reze snaps her finger and the scene slows down and it makes that same sound effect, it gives you chills. Every character is handled gracefully with the direction. The way the future Devil's powers were conveyed in this movie was peak creativity. The future Devil's powers were conveyed only 2 times, but they cooked severely each time. And I will say, I feel like Reze holding the 2 decapitated heads of those public safety guys, I don't know, man. It was less scary in the movie. The manga straight up gave me Xenomorph vibes. It gave me that classic old horror movie vibes, but in the anime, it was like, it was cool. It was kind of carried by the content and music of the scene rather than how it was actually conveyed as an adaptation. I think Fujimoto cooked harder using black and white manga panels than the staff who worked on the scene, but anyway, I'm so pissed that they didn't release the full song for Chainsaw Man Ending 3 by Maximum the Hormone the past 2 years, which was played in this movie, and when it played, it was like, oh shit, it's about to go down. I was so hyped when this played, everything was great. My favorite part of the entire movie was that scene when Reze is just whooping Denji's ass, and you see these crazy effects. She kicks him, and the entire background just turns into negative colors, and I'm like, how do they think of this shit? Because looking at those negative colors made me feel like I had a migraine, because it looks similar to how when someone gets punched in the eye or they get a ball thrown at their face and momentarily see a bunch of stars and, you know, your vision is kind of fizzled out and everything looks gray for a bit. By the way, my favorite part doesn't end here. It spans all the way until Reze uppercuts Denji to a building and the screen turns black. And you see her doing Dragon Ball Z combos on him, and it shifts into a first-person POV, which was peak. The only thing I might have to say is this shit needs an epilepsy warning, because this scene damn near blinded me, because it was just a bunch of bright ass lights blinking repeatedly. I will say the only animation I really didn't like in the fight is when Denji is riding on Beam and he's fighting the Typhoon Devil and the screen just looks like it's melting. This man Denji is running around the air like a Looney Tunes character. It looks so messy and I thought this shit looked ass. This shit reminded me of Naruto vs. Pain. It reminded me of episode 19 of Jujutsu Kaisen season 1 where Yuji is flying in the air and this shit just looks like it's melting. I don't like it when anime does that shit. It's like, yeah, the animation is extremely fluid, but it still doesn't look good. It just completely takes me out of the experience, and you can say that that's the whole purpose. Because it's a typhoon, it's supposed to make everything look disorienting, and bro, just cause it's the point, that doesn't mean I have to think it looks good. This shit looked ass. But besides that, that's all I have to say about the movie. The ending was great. I like the end credit scene of Power and Denji, and honestly, yeah, that's it for me.
A huge amount of Chainsaw Man fans all point towards one scene being the best, and that's the pool scene. This mostly derives from the beauty of the animation, showing Denji and Reze playing in the pool. While this scene is great and its direct correlation with the latest scene, where they are both swept away on the seashore, I believe the best scene in the Reze arc is the ending scene, aka Reze's final moment. The direction they took with the scene completely proves the core motive of what this movie tries to leave with us, as the viewer, a sense of loss that we don't forget in many ways. As Fujimoto himself has stated, this is what he wanted to leave his viewers with, a first breakup, or perhaps a friendship so strong, one day you both drift apart, losing someone that could have shaped and shifted the rest of your life, making you wonder, could they have ended up differently? This scene shows Reze on her way to meet Denji, walking through the alleyway up the stairs, contrasts with a similar scene in the movie earlier when she walks to her job, but the difference with both scenes is it has a different level of feel towards them, because this time we can slowly see Reze becoming more and more desperate to reach Denji. The way she walks is sort of like a soldier on the field. But the second version of Reze, unlike the first scene, there's a sense of dread that follows her as she slowly picks up her pace. This desperation she holds on to meet Denji, perhaps once again, makes her have this look on her face as we see her true emotions. As she's getting closer, walking through the alleyway, she's stopped by a familiar face. Music slowly becomes distorted, the piano slowly loses its notes, and the drowning noise as rats flood the screen, as in front of Reze's eyes Makima appears before her, with the spear of Angel Devil impaled through her chest. She utters her last words, that she too had never been to school. Fujimoto excellently leaves this sombering feeling in our hearts, because the true irony of what happened before our eyes, as much as Reze needed Denji's heart, what she truly found in the end was someone exactly like her, a pawn for her country, and for the first time in her life she felt a connection with another person.
But this is where I come in and I explain my piece on why I don't particularly like how the final moments of Denji and Reze's relationship were handled. And I know I'm gonna infuriate a lot of pretentious Chainsaw Man fans who don't know how to handle a different opinion, but I'm here to be a realist and tell you why it didn't work. So let's start with the beach scene. Denji asks Reze if she wants to run away with him. He expresses his affection for Reze, and from the audience's perspective, you can see from Denji's character in this scene and throughout the story that he is someone who subconsciously seeks to be with a person who he establishes a romantic connection with. Denji is someone who subconsciously longs for a loving relationship due to the lack of normalcy he's experienced his whole life. However, he unintentionally masks this desire with a surface level temperament of having an unacceptable, weird, perverted behavior, reflecting the animalistic and emotionally stunted nature of Denji. Everything about this is good so far because Denji showing his love for Reze is totally in character for him to do so. My problem with this scene, however, is the way all of this is framed. It's positioned in a way where it feels like the intended feeling I'm meant to have for their conclusion is to feel sad about a tragic relationship that could have worked out in a different universe. Let me tell you why this specifically is a problem. Think of it like this. Let's say there's two different emotional stages that you gotta get through in order to make me feel sad for their conclusion. Well, you have stage 1 and you have stage 2. Unfortunately, Denji expressing his love, saying how he wants to run away with her, is in stage 2. But the story never successfully gets us past stage 1. So I'm not even at the emotional stage where the scene's intended sadness actually resonates. And you're wondering what stage 1 even is, and I'm going to explain. I'm going to start off my explanation with something that's going to trigger a select group of pretentious people, and please bear with me, hold my hand, take a breather, and calm down for what I'm about to say. Denji's a simp. The behavior that he exhibited in the beach scene is straight up simp behavior, and anyone who says Denji isn't a simp either lacks a nuanced understanding of his character or they just have a different idea on what a simp actually is, because him being a simp doesn't take away his other character traits. You can still be a perverted simp that seeks for an emotional connection because you didn't experience the normal things in life. And I want to remind you guys, this bitch Reze straight up murdered a bunch of innocent people, wreaked havoc by demolishing buildings, emotionally manipulated Denji in order to fulfill her mission to then, by his tongue, tell him she wants his chainsaw heart, beat his fucking ass like there was no tomorrow, and this man is still trying to reciprocate some type of love just because they had a couple good moments with each other and how she didn't kill him from the very start? At this point, what is he even reciprocating? He's not reciprocating anything. He's reciprocating what he thinks is love. He's reciprocating the delusional, unhealthy, desperate craving for love, not the reality of it. And yes, obviously, Reze did develop feelings for Denji, but Denji doesn't truly know that. He has no idea that she's a Soviet spy who was raised by the government, that she never got to live a normal life, that she never had the opportunity to go to school, that she's just as emotionally stunted as him. Well, I mean, I'm not gonna say she's as bad as Denji because she is somewhat better at understanding social norms than him, but you get what I'm trying to say. To us, as the audience, we see the tragedy behind Reze's character, but when it comes to Denji's character, it means nothing beyond just a brief illusion of intimacy. Yeah, you can say that itself is a tragedy for his character, but it's not the same type of tragedy. It's like they're both reading the same book, dealing with the same themes, the same story, but they're both on completely different pages, and only one of them is clueless that they're both not reading the same page. And that's why stage 1 fails. Stage 1 is the emotional foundation. It's the stage where the story convinces me their connection has genuine weight. If Fujimoto wanted me to feel sad about their separation, the story needed to make Denji and Reze's understanding of each other mutual. Except it's not mutual at all. Denji doesn't have a definitive perception on who Reze is as a person. It's like, bro, this man was waiting at the coffee shop, holding flowers, thinking Reze was gonna come, and she never did. And now he's just gonna think she was just another girl who only wanted to use him. If he knew about Reze's situation, then I would have been like, okay, yeah, this relationship is pretty tragic, but, If this moment was framed in a way where it felt like I was supposed to think Denji was absolutely pathetic and a pitiful lost soul who has no idea what he's even doing, then okay, yeah, I would have enjoyed the scene a lot more, but that's not how it's really framed. And Fujimoto, he himself can flat out admit that that was the intended feeling he wanted the readers to have, right? But that's not going to change how it feels in execution. The intention doesn't automatically fix the framing. And maybe for other people, that's how they saw it, but not me. Their relationship is a tragedy, but the tragedy is mismatched. By the way, I'm not even saying that this whole thing was garbage, but it does make me drop a few points.